Welcome back to the second part of the RCB Radio Sport Show, live at 92.5 and 94.8 FM and online at www.rcb.ie. Our focus now switches to hurling and the small ball, and after a break, the Clare hurlers are back in action again. After victory over Laois in the last round in O'Moore Park, in Portlaoise, apologies. They're now on the road again, this time above in Parnell Park in Dublin, where they take on a Dublin team that has been very impressive so far in the Alliance Hurling League. And I suppose, Nicholas, if I can come to you first of all, Clare Dublin in the past, there have been some great battles, especially when Dublin were going strong, when Dublin were Leinster champions. Dublin probably over the last year or two, despite a real dominant club scene with Coola, we know, being the All-Ireland champions, the intercounty team has probably slipped back maybe the pecking order in terms of Leinster, but they seem to have come about again. And I suppose if the league is anything to go by, Dublin look to be a re-emerging sort of force this year.
They do indeed, Jim. They seem to have he seems to have found a fairly settled team there. The leagues are always against Dublin. They're always competitive, and Anthony Daly did great work there with Dublin, and I think that really brought Dublin right back up. And the clubs, the clubs. I worked in Dublin maybe 7 or 8 years ago for the summer, and the amount of people I saw were young lads going around with hurleys that you wouldn't have seen in Dublin before was phenomenal. And I think a lot of that is down to Anthony Daly. The work he's done, and now we see Coola coming along, a really big club like him, winning an All-Ireland club title. God, he's at the expense of our own Bellier. But when you see that, there are huge clubs up there, and there's a huge interest now in hurling in Dublin, and it's showing dividends in the teams that they're producing now. And they're well able to give it to any team. They can give it to Kilkenny, they can give it to any team on their day. Maybe a bit of consistency is what they need. But it's a big ask, and Parnell Park is a very hard place for Clare to go to. We always seem to find it difficult. It's a bit of a fortress for Dublin hurling, and it's a big place to go to. We had a huge blow there last weekend with the news Pat O'Connor has got a serious injury and will be out for the rest of the season. And that's a huge blow to the camp, because Pat O'Connor is a big name, he's a big figure in Clare hurling over the last number of years. Won an All-Ireland medal, and he probably was about to make his first appearance this year, maybe. And I don't know, but he might have been making an appearance against Dublin, and it's a huge blow because he's one of the lads, and I think all the panel are going to suffer losing one of their own like that. I really feel sorry for Pat. He's put in a huge effort to get back to fitness. He was going really well last year up to the he had a huge game lobby in the league, and the pandemic came along and changed a lot of things as well. So it's a huge setback for Clare, I feel. But they're going to have to get over it and move on. So the question you're going to be asking this weekend, are we going to see them making any? And are we going to see a team emerging? No, we'd have to see a bit of a settled team now. I believe David Fitzgerald was playing back at wing back last weekend in that challenge. They played him in the challenge game. So I'd like to see against Dublin now and Kilkenny the last two games. I'd like to see a settled team that they settle on a team. They had a good win and a very comprehensive win against Laois. And but this is the Dublin are way ahead of Laois, and having to go to Parnell Park is going to be a big test. But one, I think that they can if they have a clean bill of health, albeit we won't have Pat O'Connor, but if they have a clean bill of health going up to Dublin, and if we can get the 2 points off Dublin, we're in a great place going in against Kilkenny the following Saturday. I believe that game is on. So I suppose it's a big game for Dublin as well. They'll be buoyant after beating Antrim fairly. They had a big win against Antrim. So they'll be in a good mood, and they'll be in a move to take out Clare above Parallel Park if they can, but I think Clare will account well for themselves going up there.
Yeah, I suppose, Seamus, in terms of Dublin, I suppose people will look at Dublin and say they found a few new players again, but we all know they have experienced players in that team and probably players of the calibre that will walk into most senior intercounty teams in the country, the likes of Chris Cummey, Liam Rush, and they have loads of physicality as well. So Dublin are not going to be found wanting in terms of the physical stakes when it comes to playing Clare, anyway, that's for sure.
Yeah, certainly so. And, you know, a lot of people kind of maybe were surprised this week when you look at the league table and see that Dublin are in second place behind Kilkenny. And they really put it up to Kilkenny and they won. You know, they are a more settled team now than they have been for the last 2 or 3 years. And I suppose Liam Rush, Danny Sutcliffe, you know, the two of them weren't always there over the last couple of years, but both of them are filling key roles this year. You know, Rush at centre back. Sutcliffe is between the half-hour line and midfield, but they're two of the best hurlers in the country, you know, on a given day. And then you have, as you say, Chris Crummy, you have Sean Moore, and you have O'Donnell. They have experienced players who have made their mark over the last couple of years. And as Nicholas rightly pointed out, they're next to impossible to beat in Parnell Park. You know, they have a very good record there. And they know that a winner over Clare will keep them in second place and keep them pushing up the ladder, you know, which is something that they want. Now, Pat O'Connor's injury is a big blow to Clare hurling. You know, a very experienced player. Remember the 2013 All-Ireland winning team, and was playing last Friday even. They played Limerick in a challenge in Limerick, and worryingly, that's a big blow. But more worryingly for me is the fact that Clare were really well beaten in that game, which is a worry. You know, now I know they were experimenting and they were using a lot of the players who maybe haven't got game time so far in the league this year. But equally, Limerick were very much second string team as well in that game. And I was a bit surprised. I thought that maybe Colin Galvin might have been in from the start last week. You know, the previous week against Portlaoise, he saw action in the closing stages and he's part of the panel, but a man of his talent, you know, having been out for so long over the last year with so many injuries, you know, kind of, I suppose, needs a bit of game time now. It was an ideal opportunity maybe to play him last Friday evening, but for whatever reason, anyway, he didn't see game time in that game. So you know, that's a worry as to how fit he is and maybe how fit is David McInerney, because David didn't have any game time last week and he's been struggling with to shake off a quad injury. And Clare needs those players. They need all those experience. They need that experience. And with just a couple of weeks to go to the first round of the Munster Championship against Waterford, they don't want to be looking over their shoulder to see how fit or what their fitness, what the state of fitness of these players is. You know, you need fully fit players now, and the loss of anyone of that calibre is a big blow. So it's going to be a tough game on Saturday. It is. I spoke with Pat O'Connor yesterday for a few minutes, and he made the point that the two games over the next 2 weeks are two great games for Clare or for any county in the lead into the championship, Dublin and Kilkenny. That you won't get better games at this time of the year. They'll be competitive, and they should really help bring a team on, you know, ahead of the Waterford game. But the championship is coming down the line fast, and there's only a couple of weeks, so much will depend on what team Clare plays on Saturday. It should give an idea of what lineup the management are thinking of for that championship game. So it is a huge game in more ways than just one. You know, we need the points. We need to move up the ladder because we're down near the bottom of the ladder at the moment, and we need to get away from the relegation zone. We've beaten Laois, but another win would make sure that we're away from the relegation. You know, and Laois still have 2 games left as well, and we don't know what those results are going to be. So it's a huge fixture on Saturday.
I suppose, Nicholas, just to wrap up that preview now of the final few, your final thoughts on Clare versus Laois at the weekend, and for the opening 3 games so far, if there's anything that you want to see in terms of any line of the pitch or any area of particular play that you would like to see Clare maybe improve on in terms of Dublin heading into that Waterford game? And given the opposition are going to be Waterford, what would that like to be that you haven't seen so far in the league so far in the opening 3 games? What would you like to see? Maybe a small thing or a particular thing or a certain area sort of ramified?
Yeah, I suppose what I'd like to see is a consistent team more than anything else. That we know our 15 before it's named in the championship, that we wouldn't be guessing. At the moment, Seamus said I was very disappointed that Conor Galvin wasn't playing last weekend. So we haven't a clue where he is. So I'd like to know the teams that we're going to be going over with in the championship, or have a good idea to myself from watching these games. But at the moment, I don't know, because it's been chopped and changed. It would be, and that's what the manager is there for as well, maybe to find his 15. I'd like to see it settling in now. I'd like to see a bit more enterprise from the forwards, especially. I'd like to, they're coming on. I see them improving. I know they're improving, and I'd like to see O'Donnell more of what he's doing. He's playing really well at the moment. I'd like to see Tony Kelly back to full health, and hopefully that he is, and that he's not carrying an injury. That's very important to see that. So I suppose they're improving gradually, and I suppose that's the way you want them to be going. And I'd like to see a few more goal chances, even though we have goals scored. I'd like to see our attack now be a bit more, attack minded, I suppose, if for want of a better word, and I'm happy with what I saw in despite of the fact that we lost 2 games. But I was very impressed with their performance against Wexford, even though not the last 10 minutes, obviously. And they didn't put in a bad performance away from home against Centrum, despite everything. It has been said, so, and they've been gradually improving. But I love what Seamus said there, what Peter Conlan had said, what 2 better, you couldn't ask for 2 better games now to improve all that. I suppose what I'd be looking for, Jim, to answer your question, is to see their sharpness improving now, and their shooting improving with a lot of weight against Laois last day, and to see that killer instinct coming into let's Shannon and those now will be stepping up. Everything now is coming to the boil as regards who championship team and who's going to be on it. So they'll all be putting up their hand, in the next 2 games, surely to get that jersey for the championship. You want everyone in that panel wants to be marching out there, in Thurles on 27th of June. That's their ultimate goal, to be wearing that jersey. So I want them to show me and the rest of the county that they want that jersey. So that's really what I want to see, and I believe I will see it, and I believe that we are going the right direction. And sometimes you can peak too soon and playing brilliant hurling now. If a few more weeks will make a big difference, and 2 big games to show that, and to bring us up to championship level. So happy days.
On that note, now we'll switch our attention to the Cusack Cup and the Gary Cup, and sort of football league action will take place for the club players. It's been a long wait for them, I suppose, starting back in January in terms of COVID, not knowing when they will see action. It's taking to the first week of June before the second week of June before the club players are back. And Seamus, you can tell us in terms of league format, I'm very much aware that no relegation this year in terms of the leagues, in terms of Cusack Cup, in terms of Gary Cup. What do you think was the thinking behind that?
Well, I'd say the reasoning behind it was the fact that it's going to be a very much shortened campaign. And the fact that there was such little run-in time, if you like. Clubs are only allowed back training in the last 2.5-3 weeks. And they're playing this week. So from that point of view, I think that was the reasoning behind it. And normally there'd be 7 games in the football leagues minimum. There are going to be 5 clubs. The real kernel is the clubs are being asked to play these games without players that they would have on the senior and under 20 intercounty panels. And for a lot of clubs, that's going to be a big burden. So to be fair to them, I suppose that was the main reason why there's no relegation or promotion. You know, there are some clubs, I think I counted something last week, Aero had 8 players on the senior, extended senior football panel up to last week. St. Brecken's have 5, you know, and for those clubs to be expected to play a league game without those players, now they may have 1 or 2 of them back, you know, the panels are being cut and things, but to play without those players and to be expected to battle for to avoid relegation or for promotion would be a bit hard. So I'd say that was the main reason behind why the Masters Fixtures Group recommended no promotion or relegation and why the clubs backed it unanimously.
And I suppose if we can look in the QC Cup and the teams that we have there in terms of the QC Cup, and for some clubs, I suppose that you mentioned there, that Kildare, for example, the first time in their in the QC Cup in a long time. For them, I suppose they have Emmett McMahon on the county team, but that's probably very much the one only player that they might have in terms of the Clare sort of football setup, in terms of the Clare under-20s as well. So you'd expect maybe clubs like that to get those real top senior challenge games for the likes of Kildare up against good standard opposition. That's obviously going to be in good stead for them. So there's obviously benefits for some clubs as well. You mentioned there the likes of Rogue and obviously the likes of Milltown, who will probably be affected and without sort of players being available to them. But for other clubs, the likes of Kildare and being up with the big boys in the QC Cup, it's going to be a benefit to them, you'd imagine.
Yeah, of course it's going to be a benefit because players will get game time that might normally have got game time if you had the normal leagues with full panels available, you know, and with your full backup of inter-county players. The fact that there isn't the cut and thrust, we'll say, of battling for promotion or relegation will give a bit more leeway to managements to, you know, experiment a bit more and to give players, we'll say, from the extended panel, if you like, more game time at that level, and that can only be good for players in their development. You know, it's such a short competitive season now, last year and this year, and it's difficult when the county and the club scene overlaps in many ways. You know, the under-20 is coming up in the next couple of weeks, the Munster Under-20 Championship. You know, if there's such a thing as a favourable draw, you could argue that Clare have a good draw in the Munster Under-20 Championship, in that they're expected to be competitive and to be battling hard to be in the concluding stage. You know, and there's every club or most of the clubs in the county would have a player or two in that squad. You know, and they're going to be missing for this league campaign, which will give, as I said, it will give the clubs an opportunity to try out more players. But equally, I don't know if that will benefit the players in question, the under-20s, or not, because the cut and thrust of club competition helps bring on players, and players like that who are currently on the Clare under-20 panel, who would obviously have an aim of making it onto the senior panel in the next year or two. You know, they would benefit from a good hard league campaign here in the QC Cup or the Gary Cup or whatever division they're in. So, you know, I suppose there's pros and cons in the thing, but for now, you have a 5-week league program in 7 weeks, and then you have a couple of weeks and you're straight into the championship. So, you know, it's going to be difficult enough for players. The running time has been short. There's the risk of injury, more so maybe than before. You know, and if clubs who are already down a couple of players because of the county commitments were to lose 1 or 2 more because of injury, you know, it would weaken their panels considerably. So I suppose that's a consideration as well. But the bottom line is, I'd say the vast majority of players are club players. They're all delighted that there's going to be competitive games this weekend. And they're all looking forward to 4 or 5 very competitive weeks now with league games. And they're going to be very tough weeks on some players, because there are 2 double weekends where you have a full program of games in hurling and football, 7 divisions in each, and how they're going to be played, I'm still not sure, because I think I counted the other night, there'd be 50 something games in each of those 2 weekends, which is going to be take up a lot of time. A lot of players will be sore. They'll have to play 2 or 3 or maybe more games. So there's a lot to contend with. But for the punter, there's a lot to look forward to. There's a lot of games that they'll be keeping an eye on. And now with 100 spectators allowed into the club games at the moment, which should kind of be cover what should have at league games anyhow. So I think it's an exciting time, and it's something that everybody's looking forward to.
And just, Seamus, you mentioned there about the congestion of fixtures, and I suppose one thing that really struck me in terms of that is the refereeing sort of situation. If you all 7 divisions going, obviously then you go down divisions, referees are going to become scarce. So will it be the onus on the clubs when we go down to Division or 6 and the 7 to supply the referee, or will we have former sort of players that are retired from that locality being dawned on to get the shirt on and to try and ref a game? So we might have some very home biased sort of referees lower down the divisions.
Well, for the last couple of years, the onus has been on the home club in the lower divisions to appoint a referee, but there's been a key word there that has been to appoint an official referee. From that point of view, I don't think that a club can just pull somebody from the sideline and give him a whistle and say, blow the whistle, get this game going, But there's going to be huge pressure on referees, and there's no doubt that referees will be asked, and hopefully they'll be able to referee a couple of games every weekend. It's going to be a huge ask, but there'll be a high level of fitness involved in that as well. And people have jobs, people have to work, they have businesses to run. So, trying to fit in everything is going to be very difficult. I was a little surprised that there wasn't, we'll say, more of an issue made of that by the club delegates at the meeting last week, that they didn't see the problems from that point of view. And the 2 double weekends are going to prove very, very difficult. I thought that clubs might have gone for just 1 double weekend and gone for a 4-round league, which might have taken off some of the pressure, because if clubs start picking up injuries as well, then there'll be pressure on them to try and get those injuries right, because they don't have any doubt about it. Clubs will be keeping one eye definitely on the upcoming championship, because that's the one that everyone wants. Everybody wants to win the championship, and given that there's no promotion or relegation in the league this year, it will take off some of the pressure. But at the same time, clubs won't want to see players getting injured, and they'll want to keep everybody fit and well. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on a lot of people to get this program run.
And Seamus, one sort of thing as well, mention about these leagues at the weekend. Obviously, we know the grade change in underage. It's gone from minor under 18 to under 17. So an awful lot of players that would have been held out, sort of very young, to, maybe on the age, would have said, right, I'm going to play my last year minor and then I'm going to move up to adult football. I don't feel ready for it yet. Obviously, it's under 17 now, so they're practically, that option is taken away. They're technically adults sort of players in that regard. So you're going to have an awful lot, probably, second teams made up of guys that are just maybe a bare 17, not turned 18, and throwing all those players into adult action. It's probably, do you see that as a plus or a negative? I suppose for clubs that are sharp players, I suppose they'll see it's a great thing. But for the development of the young lad, maybe thrown in at a blow in Division 5 or Division 6 against someone that's 36 or 37, that's probably 3 times the size of them, that could lead to, unfortunately, some bad injuries as well. Who knows? Well,
yeah, I suppose those are chances that people take. With, firstly, under 17s can't play adult. They're not allowed to play adult competition. So you have to be over 17 and ineligible for under 17 in order to play adult competition with your club. I suppose players in that age group, 18, 19, I think will be particularly keen to get game time this year, because there has been no colleges games for the last year, either second level or third level, and the majority of players in that age group would qualify for a second level, or depending on which school or what level of education they're at, that have qualified for games with their schools. So that they were deprived of that because of COVID. So they will be mad for some kind of action, and this is their chance maybe to get back into it. Now, the worry I'd have is that maybe some of them might have forgotten about the game, and just when they got no game for the last year, might have turned to other sports. And I know definitely golf clubs have benefited hugely from people, from GA players in particular, who, because there were no club games for much of the time, have switched to golf. And the big question is, hopefully they can return to Gaelic games. It would be a pity if they're lost to it, and there's a lot at stake for the people who promote Gaelic games to try and get everybody back on the field and playing at some level. So I suppose that, there are 15 clubs entered teams for the first time this year at a lower downgrade. Clubs that, your own club, for example, had 2 adult teams for the last number of years. They have a 3rd adult team this year. My own club the same way. A lot of clubs are in that position, which is a good sign. But, there's players around who haven't been able to travel, or who haven't been able to, go away for work or whatever, and they're throwing in their lot, which that's a plus. And maybe some of those people involved in that would turn their hand to coaching some of the players in other grades in their club. So there's pluses and minuses, but as I say, the big news for every GA fan is that games are back at club level from this weekend, from Monday. It's football Monday. The following weekend is a full round of hurling, and the following weekend after that, it's a full round of everything. That's when the pressure really come on.
I suppose lastly, Seamus, before we wrap it up for the last 30 seconds, people will look, and I suppose fans and punters, there are obviously for some real diehard sort of clubs back in West Clare, they'll be looking to see the form book, they're looking to see what sort of where teams are at. But in terms of that, given that so many players are out and so many players are unavailable, will it be hard to take anything really out in terms of the Guzy Cup or Gary Cup, in terms of making assumptions on teams and where they are at going into championship in terms of form or stuff like that? Or is it very much the case we just park the league as what it is, challenge games, and maybe then we see what teams produce in the first rounds of the championship? Because normally the QC Cup and Gary Cup are a good indication of the way teams are going heading into the championship, and you start to get a feel who might be in the mix or who might be in the running for a contention. Will that be very different this year?
I don't really think so, actually. I think that it will be still a very good indication as to what's going to come in a few weeks' time in the championship. There are a number of new managements in place. This year, there's a short run into the championship, so they'll all be trying to, put down their mark. Michael Nealon is back in charge of Milltown, and that's going to be interesting. They face their neighbours and great rivals, Kilmurray Bricken, and Aidan Maloney is still at the head of there, and he'll want to, be seen to be in a position to defend the county championship that they won last year. And that is the makings of a great game. Erogan and Stuyman are meeting on Monday in a first round game. They both have new coaches this year. Odrin O'Dwyer, very experienced man, is in a Stuyman backroom team, and Shirley Buckley, the former Limerick player, is coaching Erog. So they'll all want to put their own mark down, and they will all have been trying to get out everybody that's going to be available to them over the last number of weeks. And for that point of view, there'll be a lot of lads looking to see what's going to happen. St. Brecken's, after such an impressive run last year, they travelled down to your own neck of the woods. Donny Gallagher is still manager there, and he's Declan O'Keefe with him. And he'll want to, or people will want to see, have they come on a bit from last year and have they gone a step further up. And I suppose you could say the same thing would be said about Lissaghasey. They got to the semi-final last year, same management back. Can they step it up another step this year? So there's a lot to look forward to from that point of view. And there's a few clubs in the Gary Cup who feel that they're good enough to be up in the QC Cup, up in Division 1. So Clare have a new management team in place this year, all of former players with the club, players who brought Honor and glory to the club and helped the club to win championships. They've come together, 5 of them, and then they're in charge, or they have laid down the markers in Clare as to what they want from their team. So there's a lot at stake, and I think I think the league is going to be very competitive, even though there's no relegation or promotion. But I think these leagues are going to be very competitive, as players will want to say, look, I'm good enough to be on the team come championship time at the start of August, and I'd want to put my hand up. So I think that'll lead to plenty excitement and plenty good football.
Yeah, and I suppose just a quick note, I just noticed there in terms of our own club and a few clubs that have 3 teams, there's actually players eligible once the leagues come, that could be actually eligible to play for their 3rd team, their 2nd team, and their 1st team all in the one weekend as well. So that could be a note in terms of if that happens for a particular player playing 3 football matches over the one weekend. I'm sure, given the scenario, we're bound to see it as well, Seamus.
Oh, I'd say so, because the clubs who will be down players will say for their what will be their A team, because of their commitment to county squads, be it senior or under 20, they'll be pulling players up from their 2nd team, who in turn they will be pulling players up from the 3rd team. And as you say, there will be a couple of players who will be asked to field for all 3 teams over a weekend to try and make up numbers. And done more so than case in point in your own manager, Flann Enright, who must be one of the fittest players in the county, at middle age, and he could well make an appearance in all grades in the league this year. He'd be eligible to do so. There'll be players like that, so there will be a lot involved, and a lot of clubs will maybe struggle to field all 3 teams as well on the same weekend, because of the availability of players. And then you have the worry of, if there are injuries, will clubs be down further players? So there's a lot of scenarios, and the one thing is, I'd say an awful lot of people will be kept plenty busy over the next couple of weeks, either as managers, as backroom assistants, as water boys, statisticians, players, whatever. It's just so good that everybody's back playing games, and that we'll have a lot more to talk about every morning after hearing how the teams did the night before.
On that note, Seamus, we'll park it for this week, and that's a wrap. So, folks, for this week's edition of RCB Radio Sports Show, live at 92.5 and 94.8 FM, and online at www.rcb.ie. This show will go out Friday night on our YouTube channel at 9 p.m. RCB Sport, and it'll be also aired next Monday night on RCB Sport West Clare Radio Cork from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock, live on 92.5 and 94.8 FM. And if you can't actually hear it on your airwaves, do check in online. You can watch it on www.rcb.ie between those times. For the moment, it's me, Jim Conlan, thanking Nicholas Rynne and Seamus Hayes for their participation there this evening. Stay well, stay safe, and we'll see you again next week. Cheers.